Let's dive right into this explainer and unpack a pretty stark reality about our global water future. We're looking at a fast-approaching timeline where the very foundation of human prosperity is on the line. Today, we need to answer one absolutely critical question. Why exactly are billions of people teetering on the brink of total water scarcity?
And the best place to start is with this staggering, honestly terrifying number. By the year 2050, it's projected that approximately 6 billion people are going to face clean water scarcity. I mean, really think about that scale for a second. That is the vast majority of the entire projected global population living without reliable access to the single most fundamental resource we need to survive. So, how on earth did we get here? What's driving this massive, impending shortfall?
Water is literally the ultimate connector of civilizations. It links our ecosystems, our agriculture, our energy grids, the whole shebang. It's the bedrock of global prosperity, yet these tranquil reserves are currently under severe threat. The peace we usually associate with nature, well, it's kind of deceptive because right beneath the surface, the math of supply and demand is rapidly shifting against us.
So why exactly are 6 billion people staring down this barrel? Well, it's basically a perfect storm of compounding risks. First off, we've got surging demand from a rapidly growing population, and that's colliding head-on with rising global pollution that just keeps shrinking our usable supply. Combine that with extreme, wildly unpredictable water availability driven by severe climate impacts. Imagine massive flash floods wiping out infrastructure one month, and then prolonged droughts drying up essential reserves the next. The ripple effects here are immense. We're talking about the threat of up to a devastating 6% loss to GDP in some regions, not to mention an escalating risk of mass migration and regional conflicts, simply over who gets access to water.
To survive this, we absolutely have to shift our approach. The solution really relies on merging two frameworks that, historically, have been kept totally separate: integrated water resources management and climate change adaptation. See, for decades, water managers mostly just worried about supply, while climate adaptation folks focused on surviving extreme weather. But keeping these disciplines in separate boxes today, it isn't just inefficient, it's actively dangerous.
Historically, this old way was totally defined by siloed practitioners. Water managers and climate experts literally weren't even speaking the same professional language, and that directly led to uncoordinated actions, wasted money, and severe economic damage when extreme weather hit. Honestly, that isolation is a huge reason why that 6 billion number is looming over us right now. The new way demands intentional coordination. By adopting a shared language across these fields, we can accelerate our adaptation strategies and actively protect our economies.
So to actually execute this new way, we can break our best chance at a solution down into 4 cross-cutting dimensions where these fields urgently need to cooperate. That's smarter governance, tools and data sharing, financing the future, and catalyzing conditions. Let's start with Dimension 1, smarter governance.
The real core of smarter governance is applying what experts call a systemic risk lens. Instead of treating water like it's some standalone, isolated issue, policymakers have to realize that climate impacts cascade across every single aspect of society. Recognizing this cascading effect helps break down those stubborn bureaucratic silos that separate government ministries, NGOs, and economic sectors. Once water is managed as the connective tissue of our survival, policies finally start to align in a way that can protect those 6 billion people at risk.
Moving on to Dimension 2, tools and data.
Simply put, managers cannot navigate growing hydrological extremes blindly. Our data systems have to fundamentally evolve. Take agriculture, for example. Under a siloed approach, you just have isolated irrigation tracking. But under a shared approach, that tracking gets factored directly into national climate game plans. The same goes for energy. Independent hydropower planning must be intentionally coordinated with environmental impacts. By ditching fragmented monitoring, we can create integrated cross-sector water budgets to map out exactly what we need to survive different climate scenarios.
But you can't build these kinds of budgets if everyone is hoarding their own data, right? Initiatives promoting open data sharing give developing countries and adaptation planners access to the vital metrics they need to actually prepare for sudden droughts or floods. Spearheaded by groups like the World Meteorology Organization's World Water Data Initiative, utilizing these web-based global climate databases does a lot more than just help planners. It improves the efficiency of public services, it sparks entirely new business models, and it massively enhances citizen participation and accountability.
Now for Dimension 3, financing the future.
None of these policies could happen without capital. And this massive figure right here, nearly $280 billion, represents the recent peak of non-public climate finance over the last decade. It injects some much-needed scale and optimism into our adaptation efforts. It shows us the private sector is waking up to the reality of climate risk. Public climate finance has been growing too, recently hitting almost $79 billion. Meanwhile, innovative private mechanisms are just exploding. For instance, green bond issuance grew by an incredible 51% in a single year. We've also got heavy hitters like the World Bank committing $200 billion to climate investments and the Green Climate Fund prioritizing water resilience. By leveraging blended finance, basically mixing these massive public funds with private partnerships, we can finance resilience at a truly unprecedented global scale.
And finally, Dimension 4, catalysts for urgent action.
Let's be real, even with all the data and money in the world, systemic change is incredibly hard. But we can force immediate action by leveraging 4 real-world catalysts. First is urgency. Acting right now avoids the astronomical cost of delaying. Second, jumping on windows of opportunity. Historically, it's way easier to pass major policy changes right after an extreme weather event. Third is mobilizing social movements to expand coalitions that loudly demand action. And fourth, litigation. We're seeing legal disputes in the powerful insurance industry being used to essentially force governments and corporations into compliance.
So if you take one thing away from this explainer, let it be this. Merging water management and climate adaptation is no longer just some optional bureaucratic exercise. When we are looking down the barrel of a reality where 6 billion people face scarcity, this unified approach is our ultimate, non-negotiable survival strategy.
As we wrap up this analysis, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to chew on. The frameworks, the data, the capital, they all exist today. So the question isn't whether we can adapt, it's will humanity adapt its structures and break down its silos fast enough to secure our most vital resource? Think about it, and let that question frame how you view the water policies unfolding right in your own community.